Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Newshour, India's voice to the world. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next hour, Bangladesh tightens security ahead of tribunal's verdict against former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reaffirms opposition to a Palestinian state a day before UNSC vote on US-backed Gaza peace plan. Clashes erupt during anti-government protests in Mexico. At least 120 people injured. Protesters denounce rising violence, demand justice for a murdered mayor. Britain announces sweeping overhaul of policy on asylum seekers to drastically reduce protections for refugees and end automatic benefits for asylum seekers. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reviewed the under-construction bullet train station and the high-speed rail corridor in Surat, Gujarat. This ambitious project is considered the foundation of India's modern transportation revolution. PM also interacted with the workforce at the under-construction bullet train station in Surat. Here's a report.
बुलेट ट्रेन है पहचान हमारी, ये उपलब्धि है मोदी जी आपकी और हमारी.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi carried out a detailed review of the progress of the Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail project in Surat. This ambitious project is considered the foundation of India's modern transportation revolution. The Surat station will serve as a key hub on the entire corridor. Multi-modal connectivity is being created here by integrating metro, bus and local transit systems. Significant progress has been recorded on the 508-kilometer high-speed corridor. Of the 465-kilometer of viaducts, nearly 326 kilometers have been completed. 17 out of 25 river bridges are ready. Track work is progressing rapidly in the Surat-Bilmora section. These milestones highlight India's engineering capabilities and the new strength of mega infrastructure development. Once completed, the journey between Mumbai and Ahmedabad will take just 2 hours. This will give a major boost to trade, tourism, freight movement and regional development. The Prime Minister's inspection is being seen as a reaffirmation of the government's commitment towards the vision of a developed India. During the visit, Prime Minister Modi also interacted with the workforce. The workers said they felt honored to meet him and that his words motivated them to work even better.
आज प्रधानमंत्री सर से हम लोग का मुलाकात हुआ, तो सर ने मेनली जो बात किया, अपना देश के लिए काम करने के लिए इनकरेजमेंट किया. हम लोगों को बात करके, हम लोग तो एक्चुअली बहुत नर्वस थे, लेकिन ऐसा बात करके लगा ही नहीं कि प्राइम मिनिस्टर से बात कर रहे हैं. इतना ही घुल मिल के हम लोगों से बात की है.
हमारा ड्रीम है ये बुलेट ट्रेन प्रोजेक्ट और उसमें सर आए, मेरे से इंटरेक्शन किया, मेरे से सुरक्षा के बारे में बातचीत की. मोदी जी ने हमको ये भी संदेश दिया कि जैसे कोई भी काम हो, जो भी उसमें काम में गलती हुई है तो हमको वो लिखना है ताकि हम अच्छे से उसको सुधार सके.
आज मेरा ये प्राउड मोमेंट और ड्रीम मोमेंट था प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी से मिलने के लिए और उनके साथ इंटरेक्शन हुआ था. उन्होंने डिज़ाइन और प्लानिंग इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के बारे में पूछा था कि हम लोग कैसे करते हो और कैसे उसके रिकॉर्ड्स मेंटेन करके फ्यूचर प्रोजेक्ट्स के लिए वो काम आएगा कि नहीं. और इस बात का मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा उनके साथ जो इंटरेक्शन हुई थी एंड मैं उनको एक एक्सप्लेनेशन भी दे पाई थी कि हम डिज़ाइन और ये इम्प्लीमेंटेशन कैसे करते हैं और बहुत खुशी हुई है.
Prime Minister's visit to Surat and his inspection of the progress of the bullet train project here is a major milestone in the way India travels and also a major milestone in the dream of a developed India by 2047. In Surat, Gujarat, with camera person Radhakrishnan Tiwari, I'm Akshay Dongre, DD India.
Hundreds of people marched across Mexico demanding an end to violence and corruption after the killing of Uruapan Mayor Carlos Manzo. Protesters led rallies in more than 50 cities, including Mexico City, where clashes broke out near the National Palace, where President Claudia Sheinbaum resides and works. Protesters attacked police with stones, fireworks, sticks and chains, grabbing police shields and other equipment. Here's more from DD India's Dheeraj Das. With anger, desperation in their eyes, thousands of young protesters took to the streets in many cities across Mexico to protest what they say is insecurity, organized crime, government corruption, and denouncing rising violence after the public killing of an anti-crime mayor earlier this month. The protests got a strong backing from older supporters of opposition parties too. In Mexico City, a large protest turned violent on Saturday as demonstrators clashed with riot police outside the National Palace, where President Claudia Sheinbaum lives. Thousands of protesters marched from the Angel of Independence monument through several streets and avenues before reaching the Zocalo, the capital's main square, where the National Palace home and office of President Claudia Sheinbaum is located. Tensions exploded when masked protesters tore down metal barriers protecting the palace, prompting riot police to respond with tear gas and smoke bombs. Demonstrators pushed and kicked the fences, while some hurled stones at officers. Police said at least 120 people, 100 of them police officers, were injured in the clashes, while 20 people were arrested. Participants waving Mexican flags voiced frustration over deteriorating security conditions and government corruption.
We are marching for Carlos Monzo, for the wild murder of Carlos Monzo, because we want justice for Carlos Monzo and for all those who have lost their lives and their property at the hands of criminals.
We came because of what happened to Carlos Monzo. For me, this is living proof that people have woken up. We cannot be in the hands of a country ruled by crime. No more, no more. I think this is the limit.
What I would like is for the government to stop being so permissive with crime and drug trafficking, to control them and to stop extorting people.
We are not here to protest for lunch. No one paid us. We are here of our own free will. We love Mexico and we are tired. Get out of here, Morena. You are destroying Mexico. This is not Mexico.
Other marches took place in various cities across Mexico, including in the western state of Michoacan, where the anger has flared over the murder of Uruapan Mayor Carlos Monzo, who was shot dead at a public Day of the Dead event on 1st of November. The group that called for the protests has said in a manifesto circulating on social media that it is non-partisan and represents Mexican youth that are fed up with violence, corruption and abuse of power. Meanwhile, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum's government has questioned the motives behind Saturday's marches, saying they were organized in large part by right-leaning political opponents and promoted by bots on social media. In Mexico, many young people say that they are increasingly frustrated by systematic problems, particularly corruption and impunity surrounding violent crime. The unrest comes despite President Claudia Sheinbaum maintaining high approval ratings. Dheeraj Das for DD India. Britain will drastically reduce protections for refugees and end automatic benefits for asylum seekers. The Labour government announced late Saturday under new plans aimed at slashing irregular immigration and countering the hard right. The measures, modelled on Denmark's strict asylum system, were announced as Prime Minister Keir Starmer comes under pressure from surging popularity for the anti-immigrant Reform UK party.
Britain is set to launch the largest overhaul of policy on asylum seekers in modern times, drawing inspiration from Denmark's approach, one of the toughest in Europe and widely criticised by rights groups. The Labour government has been hardening its immigration policies, particularly on illegal small boat crossings from France, as it seeks to stem the surging popularity of the populist Reform UK party, which has driven the immigration agenda and forced Labour to adopt a tougher line. This country has a proud tradition of welcoming those fleeing danger, but our generosity is drawing illegal migrants across the channel. The pace and scale of migration is placing immense pressure on communities. I will end UK's golden ticket for asylum seekers. As part of the changes, the statutory duty to provide support to certain asylum seekers, including housing and weekly allowances, will be revoked. Taxpayer-funded support will be prioritized for those contributing to the UK economy. Length of the refugee status would be cut to 30 months. Presently, those given refugee status have it for 5 years, after which they can apply for indefinite leave to remain in the UK and eventually apply for citizenship. Measures will apply on those asylum seekers who can work but choose not to, and to those who break the law. The Interior Ministry added that these measures will be regularly reviewed and refugees will be forced to return to their home countries once they are deemed safe. Shabana Mahmood is expected to provide further details on Monday about the measures, which the Home Office says are designed to make Britain less attractive to illegal migrants and make it easier to remove them. More than 100 British charities wrote to Mahmood, urging her to end the scapegoating of migrants and performative policies that only cause harm, saying such steps are fueling racism and violence. Polls suggest immigration has overtaken the UK economy as voters' top concern. Asylum claims in Britain are at a record high, with some 111,000 applications made in the year to June 2025, according to official figures. And some 109,343 people claimed asylum in the UK in the year ending March 2025, a 17% rise on the previous year and 6% above the 2002 peak. Tanvi Taneja for DD India.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated his firm stance against the establishment of a Palestinian state during a cabinet meeting on Sunday, pushing back against growing pressure from right-wing ministers and recent international signals suggesting a shift in policy.
Our opposition to a Palestinian state in any territory west of the Jordan, this opposition exists, is valid and hasn't changed one bit. I've been rebuffing these attempts for decades, and I'm doing it both against pressure from outside and against pressure from within. So I do not need any affirmations, tweets or lectures from anyone.
The UN Security Council will vote Monday on a resolution endorsing US President Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan. Last week, the Americans officially launched negotiations within the 15-member Security Council on a text that would follow up on a ceasefire in the 2-year conflict between Israel and Hamas and endorse Trump's plan. A draft of the resolution welcomes the establishment of the Board of Peace, a transitional governing body for Gaza that Trump would theoretically chair, with a mandate running until the end of 2027. Lebanon has announced its intention to lodge a formal complaint with the United Nations Security Council, accusing Israel of constructing a concrete barrier that allegedly breaches the blue line along their shared southern border. The blue line is a UN-mapped line separating Lebanon from Israel. Israeli forces withdrew to the blue line when they left South Lebanon in 2000. A spokesperson for the UN Secretary General said that the wall has made more than 4,000 square meters of Lebanese territory inaccessible to the local population. In response, an Israeli military spokesperson rejected the allegations, asserting that the wall does not cross the blue line. And still to come on DD India Newshour. Ukraine secures US LNG imports from Greece to cover winter needs. Venezuelan president criticizes planned military drills by Trinidad and Tobago. You're watching DD India Newshour. I am Siddharth Bharadwaj. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis announced on Sunday that Ukraine has secured US liquefied natural gas imports from Greece from December until March 2026 to cover its winter needs. The deal was signed between Greek gas company and Ukraine's Naftogaz during Zelensky's visit to Athens. Ukraine has resumed gas imports from a pipeline that runs across the Balkan Peninsula to Greece to secure winter supplies after Russia stepped up strikes on power generation.
Gas supplies will begin in January, and it is important that our first agreements are implemented in the first quarter. Also, in addition to the agreement on the immediate supply of gas, there are also long-term agreements.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky renewed his plea for more air defense systems a day after Russian strikes on Kiev killed 7 people. His latest comments came after Russian missiles struck apartment blocks across the Ukrainian capital Friday. Russia-Ukraine conflict has dragged on for nearly 4 years, with diplomatic efforts to end it are failing, and fears are growing for the country's energy security ahead of a 4th winter of conflict. Russia's defense ministry announced its troops have taken control of 2 villages in southeastern Zaporizhzhia. Drone footage showed soldiers raising flags in one of the captured areas. The ministry said the advance puts nearby towns in danger of being targeted by pincer-style attacks. This move is described as part of a wider offensive to secure the entire province. Ukraine has not yet issued a response to the latest developments. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung met the nation's top business leaders on Sunday, days after Seoul finalized a major U.S. trade deal that includes South Korea's commitment to invest $350 billion in key strategic sectors in the United States. During the meeting, President Lee urged companies to work closely with the government to leverage the $350 billion investment package for their overseas projects. On the same day, major South Korean manufacturers, including Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motor, announced new domestic investment plans.
I believe we managed to achieve results that others did not expect, and we defended our position very well. There are concerns that domestic investment might shrink as US-bound investment strengthen. I trust that you will take appropriate measures to ensure that such concerns do not become a reality.
Australia cautiously welcomed President Donald Trump's rollback of his tariffs on red meat while pressing the US to eliminate all tariffs on Australian goods. Trump on Friday removed tariffs he had imposed on more than 200 food products amid consumer concerns about rising US grocery prices. Australia in 2024 became the biggest shipper of red meat to the US, offering lower prices and lean cuts that the US lacks. Among the various tariffs Trump has imposed on goods shipped into the US, he calls some of them reciprocal based on the size of the US goods trade deficit with a given country. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said his Labour government would continue to advocate for genuine reciprocal tariffs, which would be zero. Foreign Minister Penny Wong said Canberra would keep advocating their position.
The lifting of these tariffs, that's a good thing for Australian beef producers. We maintain a clear, consistent position. We do not support tariffs. We believe in being able to access each other's markets. We think that's in the best interests of consumers as well as of producers.
Tens of thousands of people thronged the streets of the Amazonian city hosting COP30 talks on Saturday, dancing to thumping speakers in the first large-scale protest at a UN climate summit in years. As the first week of climate negotiations limped to a close with nations deadlocked, indigenous people and activists sang, chanted and rolled a giant beach ball of earth through Belém under a soaring sun. Others held a mock funeral procession for fossil fuels, dressed in black and pretending to be grieving widows as they carried 3 coffins marked with the words coal, oil and gas. It was the first major protest outside the annual climate talks since COP26 4 years ago in Glasgow, as the last 3 gatherings were held in locations with little tolerance for demonstrations: Egypt, the United Arab Emirates and Azerbaijan. Called the Great People's March by organizers, the Belém rally comes at the halfway point of difficult negotiations and follows 2 indigenous-led protests that disrupted proceedings earlier in the week. India criticized developed countries for failing to meet their climate finance obligations. Speaking on behalf of the like-minded developing countries at the 3rd high-level ministerial dialogue on climate finance at COP30 in Brazil's Belém, India said climate finance is a critical enabler of climate action in developing countries. India's negotiator Suman Chandra emphasized the critical need for predictable, transparent financial assistance from developed countries to enable developing nations to meet their nationally determined contributions. India made it clear that the climate transition in the global south is being held back by broken promises. India's remarks highlighted the legal obligations set out by the Paris Agreement that developed nations have yet to fulfill. India specifically pointed out inadequacies in the new collective quantified goal revealed at COP29 and called for substantial, consistent financial support from wealthier nations. At this year's climate conference, developing countries have demanded that Article 9.1 be included on the official agenda for formal negotiations. NDCs are national climate plans under the Paris Agreement that set targets to cut emissions and adapt to climate change, guiding global efforts to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Storm Claudia has killed 3 people and injured dozens in Portugal. Authorities confirmed 28 injuries, including 2 in serious condition. The Portuguese Weather Service placed 3 districts in southern Portugal on high alert. The storm also struck Wales, causing severe flooding overnight. The town of Monmouth was hardest hit after a river overflowed, damaging homes, businesses, transport and energy systems. Officials described the impact as widespread and serious, with recovery efforts underway. The US military released video, it said, showed a lethal kinetic strike on a vessel described as being involved in illicit narcotics smuggling in the Caribbean. On its X account, the US Southern Command said the strike had occurred on November 10 at the direction of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. In the black and white video, the boat appears to be traveling at high speed when it bursts into flames and stops. The US strikes against suspected drug vessels in the Caribbean and off the Pacific coasts of Latin America have killed dozens of people who President Donald Trump's administration calls drug trafficking terrorists, responsible for thousands of deaths in the United States without providing evidence. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro on Saturday criticized planned military drills by Trinidad and Tobago, calling them a threat to regional stability and accusing the neighboring nation of allowing its waters to be used for exercises aimed at intimidating Venezuela. The exercises in waters of Venezuela's Sucre state coast are scheduled to run from Monday to Thursday. The exercises take place amid broader US military operations in the Caribbean, which include warships, fighter jets and thousands of troops. While US President Donald Trump's administration says the operations target drug trafficking, Maduro maintains they represent a covert attempt to overthrow his government. Let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Ecuador's President Daniel Noboa cast his vote in Olon on Sunday in a crucial referendum that will decide whether foreign military bases can return to the country and whether work should begin on drafting a new constitution. The proposed changes could significantly expand the powers of the Trump-aligned president, making this vote a key moment in Ecuador's political future. Chilean President Gabriel Boric cast his vote in Punta Arenas as more than 15.6 million Chileans headed to the polls on Sunday. Voters are choosing from 8 candidates to succeed the leftist leader, with left-wing Jonet Jara and far-right Jose Antonio Cast emerging as the frontrunners. The election is unfolding amid heightened public concern over rising crime, which many Chileans associate with irregular migration. A volcano on Japan's major western island of Kyushu erupted multiple times on Sunday, sending a plume of smoke and ash as high as 4.4 kilometers into the air and causing dozens of flight cancellations. The volcano, which is called Sakurajima and is located on the southern tip of Kyushu near the city of Kagoshima. Bangladesh has tightened security as country's International Crime Tribunal prepares to deliver a verdict in case filed against former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina on Monday. The case relates to alleged crimes against humanity during protests in July-August 2024. Hasina has denied all allegations against her. Bangladesh Court International Crimes Tribunal is set to deliver verdict on Monday in crimes against humanity trial of ex-PM Sheikh Hasina of Bangladesh. Hasina, former Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan Kamal and ex-police chief Chaudhry Abdullah Al Mamun were charged under the International Crimes Tribunal Act. Let's have a look at timeline of the events in Sheikh Hasina's case. On July-August 2024, a mass student-led protest erupted in Bangladesh. Protests forced fall of Hasina's government by early August. On August 5, 2024, Hasina fled Bangladesh and went into exile. On June 1, 2025, the ICT in Dhaka officially began the in absentia trial of Sheikh Hasina along with former Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan Kamal and former Police Chief Chaudhry Abdullah Al Mamun. They were charged with crimes against humanity under the ICT Act for ordering the deadly crackdown. They were charged with crimes against humanity under ICT Act for ordering crackdown. On August 3-4, 2025, opening statements by prosecution and defense were made. Witness testimonies begin with survivors and victims. On July 10, 2025, Tribunal formally indicted Hasina and others. October 23, 2025, hearing concludes after more than 28 working days and 54 witnesses. On November 17, 2025, verdict scheduled to be delivered by a 3-judge tribunal. Sheikh Hasina faces crimes against humanity charges. However, her party Bangladesh Awami League has rejected reforms promised by the interim government and has also called to rise against ongoing anarchy. Party also alleged UNS-led government of using false cases, violent attacks, arrests and repression to achieve its political goal. With inputs from Naval Singh Parmar from Dhaka, Bureau Report, DD India. And DD India correspondent Naval Singh Parmar joins me on the phone line from Dhaka. Hi Naval Singh, what is the situation there right now?
Political situation here in Bangladesh is very tense as well as the law and order. Because since last 1 week, there are many incidents of arson as well as a crude bomb blast and gunfire. So law and order situation as well as political situation is very tense. And since tomorrow there is a verdict in a very important crucial case against the Sheikh Hasina, so security has been tightened. Law enforcement agency including BGP, Border Guard Bangladesh, Rapid Action Force have been deputed in Dhaka, Gopalganj, Faridpur and other neighboring districts of Dhaka. Last week there were a call from the Awami League for the lockdown in Dhaka and nearby district, and it got a good response because there were very sparse movements on the roads and streets of Dhaka. So tomorrow also there may be some call from the Awami League party as well as some unwanted incident may happen. And due to that, the Dhaka police chief has ordered police force to open fire if there is any violence or arson attack. So that is very crucial thing. It is a very latest development. So tomorrow it is anticipated that after the verdict or something may happen. So security forces are very vigilant, and people who are living in Dhaka are also taking the precautionary measures.
Okay, the security is really tight. That's what our correspondent Naval Sangh Parmar is saying. Naval Sangh, I want to ask you, how are people in Bangladesh reacting to the trial?
There are division in people. There are Awami League is a major political party. Those who are supporter of Awami League, they are quite against the development, against the Sheikh Hasina. And there are other two parties like Jamaat-e-Islami and Bangladesh Nationalist Party. And they are also having some dispute themselves, and there is having a divergence of opinion regarding the ban on Awami League. It is Awami League party is banned after the 5th August last year. So some leaders in the both the party are pro-ban some things that the Awami League should be allowed to contest election, and there is a divisions in the political party. So people are also divided, and it is up to the interim government and the many things happen here in Bangladesh based on the on street, not by the consensus or the discussion table, but on street.
All right, so security is tightened and people are divided. That's what our correspondent Naval Sangh Parmar is saying. Well, Naval Sangh Parmar, thank you so much for giving us those updates. And now joining me on the broadcast today is Miss Veena Sikri. She is former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh from New Delhi. Ma'am, first of all, a very warm welcome to DD India Newshour. Ma'am, you've been there and you know how things function there. We told our viewers that Bangladesh right now is on the edge. Security tightened ahead of special tribunal's verdict against Sheikh Hasina. What's your assessment of this entire scenario? What do you expect as far as the verdict is concerned?
Well, I think, first of all, the verdict is definitely going to be a tough one. They expect the death penalty for Sheikh Hasina. But I think much more than just the verdict, because much more than the verdict, two things are going to happen. Firstly, this verdict was supposed to be delivered on the 13th of November. But because at the behest of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, a total lockdown, a total band had been called for in Bangladesh, in Dhaka and all other areas. And this was remarkably successful. In fact, there was a complete lockdown. Nobody moved on the streets.
Right.
Were closed, schools were closed. I think this has unnerved the Bangladesh government to see that despite the Awami League being a party whose activities have been banned by the Yunus interim regime, the support for this party fully exists. If anything, it has grown. So this is one aspect that is very important to take into account. So obviously the Yunus regime is nervous about tomorrow. The army, I think, has said that they will not be taking any action. They have more or less withdrawn from the situation. But the Yunus regime has asked the police to fire on any civilians who emerge. So I expect tomorrow will also be very much a lockdown situation. But I think more interestingly, more importantly, if we take a broader picture of what is happening in Dhaka for the last 1 year, we can see that the Mohammed Yunus regime has not received the kind of support it thought it would get. And when I say the Mohammed Yunus regime, I'm talking about the one institution that is behind the regime, which is the Jamaat-e-Islami. The Jamaat-e-Islami thought that with the Awami League out of the picture, and the BNP is more or less being pushed aside by the Jamaat-e-Islami, their erstwhile political partner, they thought that they would get all the popularity, but that really has not happened.
And what do you think the reason behind this is?
Sorry, I think the reason is that, first of all, the complete economic debilitation of the economy. Factories have closed, their trade with India, well, in terms of exports, more exports are going in terms of foodstuffs and other material. But what they need for factories, for their inputs, for their ready-made garment exports, all that, the regime is trying to ask the factory owners to import from other countries, from Pakistan, from Brazil and so on. This is proving much more difficult. So many factories have closed down. People are unemployed. There's high inflation. No investment has come in at all in the last 1 year to Bangladesh. So this is the economic situation. Politically, I think the Yunus regime has not at all been able to deliver on what they promised, talking about full democracy. They said that the previous 3 elections under Sheikh Hasina were not really free and fair elections. And Today, they are planning exactly the same thing. They don't want the Awami League to participate in the next elections. And I think the people of Bangladesh are very angry with this. First of all, Awami League support is a good 30 to 40% of the population, possibly even more now. The PNP, the other major party, also has a very large support, but that party too is being sidelined, everything to favor the Jamaat-e-Islami. And I think the two major parties, if you try to sideline them, then the people are going to be angry, and that's what happened. Now, the third point I'd like to say is what you said in the very beginning of your broadcast, that this was a students' uprising. I think that is the first thing we have to realize it's not true. This was not a spontaneous students' uprising in any way. It was a pre-planned regime change operation. And aim of the so-called quota reform, some students had come to join in the beginning, but very quickly when the Supreme Court of Bangladesh, even while Sheikh Hasina was there, gave its verdict, finally abolishing the quotas for freedom fighters' children and grandchildren, and leaving only 5%. So then the students said, no, well, now we have nothing to, no complaint against the government, any other issue we'll talk. So this was really a regime change operation planned with Pakistan as the conduit through the Jamaat-e-Islami, which is always Pakistan's partner. And they thought that very quickly they'd be able to get the support of the people. But today, there's not a single student in support of this government. In fact, on the 13th of November, again, the same day that the verdict was to be delivered, when the Yunus regime announced a cancellation of their decision to put music teachers and singing teachers and PT teachers in every school, college and university, the students erupted. They were angry. They said, no, we don't want, the Yunus regime said, instead of this, we'll have religious teachers. And the students said, no, we believe in culture. Our culture is my identity. So I think that this is a huge problem that
so the reason why Muhammad Yunus is not getting support in the country, according to you, is that people are angry, and then there is an economic dent on the economic front, and then promises were failed miserably. Also, do you, like Sheikh Hasina supporters believe that the charges against her are politically motivated, and why?
Well, I think the charges against her certainly seem to be politically motivated. Why I'm saying so is that there is a lot of hearsay about what actually happened between, let's say, July, August of last year. Now, in the beginning, at that time, I remember I was following the media very carefully in Bangladesh. They announced that maybe some 300 students had been killed. Very soon, this figure went up to 800 and then it went up to 1400. Now, that's one thing. So nobody really knows. There's been no inquiry on what happened. Secondly, from the minute that Sheikh Hasina left the country on 5th of August and 8th of August, the Yunus was sworn in. And in the subsequent weeks, so right from 5th of August onwards, there's a huge stream of violence inflicted on the people of Bangladesh by the Yunus regime, by the Jamaat-e-Islami and all their cohorts. The Islami Chhatra Shibir, the students wing and all others. We know that there was a serious attack on the Hindus, the Christians, the Buddhists, the Sufis, the Ahmadiyas, all the minorities were brutally attacked, and that's continuing since then. But in addition to that, there was a huge attack on the Awami League people. They were jailed. The media has been completely clamped down on. There is no freedom of the media. All the media boards have been changed. Senior journalists are in jail with no charges. The Awami Leaguers in jail for 1 year with no charges. Several have even died while they are in jail. So all this has created a tremendous aura of fear and uncertainty. And the people who have died under the Yunus regime, in the violence unleashed by the Yunus regime and its cohort, they are not being looked at all. This question is not even being raised. And in fact, the Yunus regime has taken indemnity against itself, saying that anybody like ourselves or anybody who took part in the July-August uprising, nothing can be done against them. So people don't believe in what Muhammad Yunus...
And I understand what you're saying. Ma'am, please allow me to read a tweet. Awami League has put out a tweet. It's a very long tweet, but I'll just read the first sentence. It says, over the past 15 months, Bangladesh's financial, social and educational pillars have collapsed one after another. Hundreds of factories have shut down. Millions of workers have lost their jobs. Exports have nearly come to a halt, and no new development initiative exists. Pretty much what you were saying on the economic front. How do you react to this tweet? This is a long tweet, by the way. I just read the first sentence.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that what the tweet is saying is absolutely correct. This reflects very much the great disappointment of the people. That the people are so disappointed, disheartened that this should have happened, because they had all that hope. When this whole quota reform movement started, I told you that some students, regular students did come out thinking, oh, wow, this is an occasion, we should get rid of the quotas. But when they realized what was happening, that this was a politically motivated campaign, nothing run by students at all, they withdrew from it. And today, those very students are campaigning against the Yunus regime. So there is no political freedom, there is no economic stability, there is no economic growth. So what do the people of Bangladesh have to look for? And in addition to that, let me make one point that is so serious, because it affects us in India very, very seriously. And that is because of the Pakistani being a conduit and then suddenly jumping into action in Bangladesh, restoring something which for 50 years had not happened. Economic ties between Bangladesh and Pakistan, military ties between Pakistan and Bangladesh. The army number 2 has visited, the deputy prime minister and foreign minister of Pakistan has visited Bangladesh. These ties have jumped up to such an extent that now the Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Jaish-e-Mohammed and their cohorts are visiting. And today, I don't know if you've seen, but there is such a strong report that actually a lot of this ammunition that was smuggled into India, that we know that 3 tons of it were found when we had the Red Fort blast on Monday. And now they're saying that even 12 tons more has come in through Bangladesh. And that, this is all gone in different parts of the country and all kinds. So Bangladesh is being Pakistan's cat's paw. They are doing whatever Pakistan is telling to doing and harming the security and all other interests of India. I can relate to this very clearly because when I was High Commissioner in Bangladesh and Begum was the Prime Minister, these were the kind of relations that were there at that time between Pakistan and Bangladesh. And the Pakistan military was at that time also exerting a very close control on the Bangladesh army, which they're doing now. They're trying to embed themselves with the Bangladesh army. So I think that this is something of great concern, that the way in which Bangladesh is being used by Pakistan to harm India's security interests and to launch attacks on India through Bangladesh, taking advantage of the border, which is much more porous in the case of Bangladesh than it is in the case of the Western sector. So I think these are all the issues that we should be very serious about. And I think that one of the most important things that we have to focus on if we want to stop this kind of situation building up in Bangladesh is to ensure that the forthcoming elections do take place as promised on time in February, and that these elections are free, fair, inclusive and credible. If they try to leave out the Awami League, the Jatiya Party and all major parties of Bangladesh, these elections will lead to further instability and further strife in Bangladesh. We do know that many people who are today advisors in the Yunus regime, members of the Islami Andolan Bangladesh, members of Hizb ut-Tahrir, you mentioned Hizb ut-Tahrir and others, they have spoken openly of Sharia law in Bangladesh, of having a caliphate in Bangladesh. And they say, even if there's civil war, we want to insist on a caliphate and Sharia law. So the kind of people who are in power today in Bangladesh have a totally different agenda from what you will think that a Nobel laureate like Mohammed Yunus as the interim chief. But the amazing part is that the Western countries are taking no notice of this. And even just recently, there was a minister from the UK government who came and met Mohammed Yunus. And when he told her that Awami League will not participate in the election, she just kept quiet. I can't imagine a democracy like the UK believes in free and fair elections and then saying not at all blinking an eyelid.
Right. In fact, ma'am, last month, Awami League filed a petition with the Hague-based ICC accusing the Yunus-led interim administration of crimes against humanity, including killings and arbitrary arrests of its members. But all in all, I want to ask, what is the impact of all this on Bangladesh? Where is all this taking the country to?
I will say that unless we, the people of Bangladesh, supported by countries like India, and getting the support even of the West, which is, in the beginning, they've been closely involved in all the events in Bangladesh, they must now know that the situation is very serious, that the situation needs free, fair, inclusive, and participatory elections. And this must be the effort of all. The people of Bangladesh now want it. They have shown clearly they want it. I would say that even, the efforts by the UNSC regime to have a July national charter, and then the efforts for them to have various commissions of reform, and then the effort to have a referendum on the reforms before the elections, all that has sort of come to naught, because the presidential order issued on 13th of November, a few days ago, said clearly that the referendum and the elections will be held on the same day. So if the people want a referendum, if they want any changes in the constitution, they have to wait till the elections are held. So I think that we have to again and again focus on these free, fair and inclusive elections, and we have to point out as to what Pakistan is trying to do to harm the stability of our region, to harm the stability and security of India, and for their own narrow purposes, they are misusing the people of Bangladesh for this purpose. And I can tell you, the vast majority of the people of Bangladesh do not want these kind of close relations with Pakistan. They have not forgotten the liberation war. Pakistan wants Bangladesh to forget the liberation war.
Right.
They want them to just, even in the July National Charter, the effort was not to include any reference to the Liberation War. But that fortunately did not happen. There is a reference there. And we know that more and more the people of Bangladesh remember what the values, the younger generation remembers the values of the Liberation War, and they want those to prevail, not this kind of religious-minded Sharia law and, very, very narrow percentage of people. But effort has to be to make sure that the elections are free, fair, inclusive and participatory.
Right.
Our government has made many statements on this, and I think it is up to us now to make sure that with the support of the world community, this actually happens. We know that the NSA of Bangladesh, Dr. Khalilur Rahman, who's actually an American citizen, but coming to Bangladesh, India in the coming week, and maybe there will be some talks. Let's see how those talks go.
Definitely, the situation is really tight and security is tight as well. We'll have to wait and see what will happen tomorrow, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining in on DD India Newshour. Thank you. And still to come on DD India Newshour. Dr. S. Jaishankar meets with Qatar's Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs in Doha.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met with Qatar's Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman bin Jassim Al Thani in Doha. Ministers reviewed key aspects of strategic partnership, including energy, trade, investment, and people-to-people connect. They also exchanged of views on Middle East, West Asia, regional and global developments. In a major breakthrough in the Red Fort car blast case, India's National Investigation Agency has arrested a Kashmiri resident who allegedly conspired with the suicide bomber behind the attack that killed 10 people and injured 32. The accused, Amir Rashid Ali, in whose name the car used in the blast was registered, was held in Delhi after the NIA took over the probe. Investigations revealed that Amir, a resident of Sambura in Pampore, had worked with the suspected suicide bomber Umar Nabi to plan the attack and had travelled to Delhi to help purchase the vehicle later used as an IED. The Indian Air Force is participating in the 8th edition of the bilateral air exercise Garud 25 in France from Sunday till 27th of November. The Indian Air Force will conduct this exercise with the French Air and Space Force till 27th of November. The Ministry of Defence said that this exercise aims to refine tactics and procedures in a realistic operational environment. The ministry added that it also provides an opportunity for professional interaction, exchange of operational knowledge and sharing of best practices between the two air forces. During the exercise, the Indian Air Force's Su-30 Mark I aircraft will operate alongside the French multi-role fighters in complex simulated air combat scenarios, focusing on air-to-air combat, air defense and joint strike operations. At the 44th India International Trade Fair being held at Bharat Mandapam in Delhi, the Madhya Pradesh Pavilion has become the center of attraction. The pavilion has been designed according to the fair's theme, Ek Bharat Shreshtha Bharat, that is, One India, Great India. Here, visitors can not only see the Gwalior Fort but also get a glimpse of the Chausat Yogini Temple of Morena. The pavilion showcases the industrial progress of Madhya Pradesh along with exhibits of various products which are also being sold at the stalls. India and Brazil held the 3rd International Ayurveda Conference in Brazil's Sao Paulo to celebrate 40 years of Ayurveda. The two-day event by Sri Vivekanand Cultural Center and CONAIR under Indian Council for Cultural Relations brought together experts from India and Latin America. Ambassador Dinesh Bhatia highlighted India-Brazil cooperation, while Secretary Vaidya Rajesh Kotecha emphasized holistic wellness. The conference included lectures, discussions, and Ayurveda is now officially recognized in Brazil. In a major step toward expanding frontier tourism, the Sikkim government has announced that the strategically sensitive sites of Doklam and Shola will be opened to tourists by December 15 this year. The decision marks the first time civilians will be allowed to access to these high security border zones. The sites were originally scheduled for inauguration on 27th of September, but the plan was delayed due to administrative and logistical hurdles. Sikkim's additional Chief Secretary for Tourism confirmed that preparations are now in their final phase. By opening these previously restricted regions, the Sikkim government aims to promote adventure and heritage tourism. The Sikkim government is preparing to open Chola and Doklam under the Battlefield Tourism Initiative of the Defence Ministry. This place is located at nearly 14,000 feet and nearly 70 kilometers away from the capital Gangtok city. On the other hand, Chola is a must-visit for history buffs, adventure enthusiasts and nature lovers for its captivating landscapes and rich heritage. The Sikkim government and the army are developing these places to welcome tourists by next month. However, the government will only allow a limited number of vehicles and bikes daily, with specific do's and don'ts instructions while visiting both places. You're watching DD India News. Our time now for sport. And off-spinner Simon Harmer led South Africa to a thrilling 13-run victory against India inside 3 days of the low-scoring opening test in Kolkata. Harmer claimed 4 wickets for 21 runs as India, chasing 124 for victory, folded for 93 in a remarkable batting meltdown at Eden Gardens. Chasing a small total to win, India were already short of a batter as skipper Shubman Gill, who was retired hurt in the first innings, could not bat in the second. To make it worse, Marco Jansen claimed 2 wickets in his first 7 deliveries to leave India reeling. Yashasvi Jaiswal fell for a 4-ball duck, while opening partner KL Rahul made 1 before he too perished. Earlier, Temba Bavuma dragged South Africa back into the contest with an innings of tremendous grit. His unbeaten 55 runs was the only 50 by any batter on a minefield of a pitch where inconsistent bounce and spin made life difficult for the shotmakers. The second and final test is scheduled in Guwahati from November 22nd. South Africa beat India by 30 runs in the first test at Kolkata, finishing the match inside 3 days. Off-spinner Simon Harmer took 4 wickets for just 21 runs as India, chasing 124, were bowled out for 93. India struggled without captain Shubman Gill, who was injured and could not bat. Marco Jansen struck early, removing Yashasvi Jaiswal and KL Rahul cheaply. Earlier, South Africa's captain Temba Bavuma played a fighting knock of 55 not out, the only 50 of the match on tough pitch with uneven bounce and spin. After the loss, India's coach Gautam Gambhir said the team had asked for such a turning pitch but failed to handle the pressure. The second test will be played in Guwahati from November 22nd.
The point is that you should be able to know how to play turn. And this is what we asked for, and this is what we got. I thought the curator was very supportive, and I still believe that irrespective how the wicket was, it was 123 was chaseable. And I felt that if you are willing to put your head down, and if you have a solid defense, if you have the temperament, you can definitely score runs. Yes, it might not be a wicket which is going to be very, very flamboyant where you can play those big shots, but if you're willing to put your head down, definitely it's a wicket where you can score.
India made a strong start at the Deaf Olympics, winning 4 medals on the very first day, 1 gold, 2 silver and 1 bronze. In the men's 10-meter air rifle event, Dhanush Srikanth won gold with a world record score of 252.2 points, while Mohammad Vania took silver. In the women's 10-meter air rifle, Mahit Sandhu won silver after scoring 250.5 points, just behind Ukraine's Laikova Violeta. Komal Milind Wagmare added a bronze with 228.3 points. The stellar performances shows India's growing strength in shooting at the Deaf Olympics. India's Olympic silver medalist Mirabai Chanu is gearing up for a major shift ahead of the 2028 Los Angeles Games. With the 49-kilogram category removed from the Olympic roster, Chanu will now transition to the 53 kilograms weight class. Her coach Vijay Sharma believes this move could boost her strength and performance in the long run. Speaking at the Delhi Sports Journalists Association's annual awards, the champion lifter said she is ready to adapt and determined to bring home another Olympic medal for India.
बहुत ज़्यादा खुशी हूँ कि ओलंपिक में फेल होने के बाद जो अचीवमेंट मैंने मिला है ये इसको रेस्पेक्ट करके उन्होंने मुझे अवार्ड दिया है, तो ये बहुत एक प्लेयर्स के लिए बहुत बड़ी बात होती है और बहुत खुशी की बात होती है। और सबसे ज़्यादा खुशी आज स्पोर्ट्स जर्नलिस्ट के बीच में मैं खड़ी हो पाई हूँ, तो ये बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ी बात है। अच्छा लगती हूँ आज बहुत।
Further, Mirabai's coach Vijay Sharma praised the journalists for covering and supporting the journey throughout and expressed gratitude for being honoured by the Delhi Sports Journalists Association.
एक अच्छी फीलिंग आ रही है और बहुत ज़्यादा खुशी महसूस हो रही है कि क्योंकि जो हमारी पहले दिन से जो स्पोर्ट्स जर्नलिस्ट हैं उन्होंने शुरू से आज तक हमारी जर्नी देखी है, अप्स भी डाउन्स भी सब कुछ, और अप्स में भी हमारा साथ दिया और जब हम डिप्रेस फील कर रहे थे उस समय भी उन्होंने हमारा साथ देके हमें मोटिवेट किया। और ख़ासकर जो पत्रकार बंधु हैं उन्होंने हमें वेट लिफ्टिंग को सारी दुनिया को जानने के लिए बहुत मदद की है, उसके लिए मैं बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूँ। और आज जो मुझे सम्मान दिया उसके लिए मैं तहे दिल से आभारी हूँ।
That's all for this edition of DD India Newshour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Newshour.